This is the start of the disassembly of Kyle B's engine. I'm going to start by loosening the power steering pump. There's a bolt right down there and right on the back with slots, and it'll allow me to spin it or move it this way and loosen the belt. Once I get the belt off, then I will loosen the alternator bracket right down here and swing the alternator in to release that belt. Once the belts are off, I'll probably take off this water hose here. That's your incoming water line from the back. Then once I get that off, then I'll work on the, then I'll take the power steering hose off. The lines come off the back and run right down alongside the front of the power, or right side of the valve cover. And then come all the way back around here and back up to here. So it went to the back of the, to the steering at the back of the boat. So that's the high pressure. The low pressure is right here. Again, it comes across the back of the boat, runs down there, goes down, right down through there, goes underneath the motor mount, and it comes into the back of the power steering right here. Comes up and swings up right here. Goes behind the alternator, swings up right there. That's the power steering hoses. I'll disconnect the alternator wiring, disconnect the oil sensors, and there's another one right here on the back. Right down in there, right there. Once I get all that done, then I'll do the harness over here on this side. Well, first I'll probably get the hoses off the water pump and thermostat housing. Get all that taken off. Get the, leave the pulley on the water pump. Take the water pump off with the pulley on attached, and then remove the front pulley. Just trying to get it down to a short block or long block where I can get the heads off and see what condition the motor's in. There's a pipe strap underneath the upper water pump bolt holding the incoming water line on. I'm going to take that loose, and then there's a bolt holding the cooler right there. So there's your bracket holding the cooler on. Once you get that loose, I'll take the cooler off with the power steering pump. Okay, this is the alternator wiring. You got that orange wire with the butt splice in it going right there on that terminal. Then you got some other darker wire back there on that terminal. Get this ground wire on that terminal. It says, oh, see, this is ground. But then you got your output right here, right there under that rubber cap. So that makes 1, 2, 3, 4 wires on the alternator, and that's it. So I'm about to disconnect those. The alternator bracket is tied to the power steering bracket, so the power steering pump has to go on first, followed by the alternator. Okay, the harness for the alternator runs across the top, over across the behind and across the top of the water pump. Down, it looks like it was tied here, but it went to the back of the alternator, back through there like that. This bracket attached to the top hole of that two-hole bracket or two-hole boss. That's what holds the alternator. That's coming off next. Then we get this hose off your main water circulation hose from your water pump to your thermostat housing. And then I'll probably just leave the thermostat housing alone if it's not too bad, not too rusted. Just trying to get the water pump free. Okay, I've disconnected the oil sending unit, this blue wire, from the oil pressure sending unit, but since this turns inside, I'm probably sure it's defective now. Disconnected to the oil pressure, your oil pressure alarm, which is this device right here, and then these two right here, your fuel pump switch connected here. So about to pull this harness back around the back of the motor. This was here. The coil actually goes up here on the back of the head. We had already disconnected it out in the boat to get access to something. But so anyway, if I go with the Delco EST system, I'll be getting rid of this. But for now, I'm keeping it. So I'm going to not disconnect the coil and leave the coil on the harness. I'm going to disconnect those wires from the distributor. There is a red on the left and white or green stripe on the right there. So I'm going to disconnect those. Harness will be free to come around the side of the boat or side of the engine, go over here, and it's free over here on the starter. So all I got to do is disconnect from the two temperature sensors up there, and then disconnect this bracket holding that starter relay on there, and take this whole harness off as a unit. Just about get the harness. Before I do that, I've got to disconnect the fuel line here at the carburetor right here and cut these wire ties off this holding choke. Fuel line comes right down beside the valve cover, right through there. Comes down, goes to the fuel pump. I'll be just pulling that fuel pump off with the harness, leaving it attached, along with the coil in the back. This piece will go over the harness here. Back up, you said. So that's the boat harness connector. It'll stay with this harness, and then disconnect or take a bolt loose right in. Let's see where I'm at. Right there for this fuel filter, so they can get that off. And I'll take the fuel filter, the fuel pump, fuel lines, ignition coil, harness all off at one time. Okay, I now have the harness taken off. As I said, I took it off as one unit. The coil still attached, the starter relay, circuit breaker, and boat harness connector. And let's see what else is part of that. Yeah, the whole harness came off as a unit. And then I took the 2 bolts loose on the thermostat housing, tapped with a hammer. The thermostat housing came off, and then got that off. Then I loosened the distributor hold down clamp right there. I pushed it. Just, you don't have to take the bolt all the way out. Just move the clamp back, lift the distributor out, and I've checked the oil in this motor. I thought the oil looked good. I didn't see any sign of water, but when I pulled this distributor out, there's a little bit of water. That's water and oil mix right there. So looks like I'm gonna go have. I wasn't planning on taking the oil pan off, but now I am. I got to see if there's any water oil mix in the oil pan. So I'm gonna drain the oil and see what happened there. But my goal right now is late at evening is get this intake manifold off and then get the heads off so I can see the condition of the cylinders and see what kind of, if there's any damage, internal damage to the motor. So that's where I'm at, and hopefully I'll get the heads off tonight. Okay, I now have the intake manifold off, and it's evident that there's been some trouble with this engine in the past. There's signs of rust on the back wall there. There's some signs of water mix, a little bit of water mix of oil. There's signs that somebody's been in here before with all this crud done in here. But that's not the main problem. So this engine is toast. So the source of the water is a crack. This engine's cracked right. Let me point it out for you. There's a crack right. Let me see if I get the camera. Right there. See it running right through there. It runs down, runs across. Let me see if we can find the other side of it. See if we get some light in there. Let me turn this thing back off and get the flash on. Okay, now I got the flash on, so now you can see the crack. It's right there. My finger, so it's running right there. There's a crack right through there, coming across, and then it turns down right there. It's not a huge crack, so that's why there's not a whole lot of water in here, but it's a crack, and it's never gonna get better. So this block is basically ruined. So it's another case of somebody selling a customer a bad engine. Need to find a replacement block, replacement engine, and put it in the customer's boat. So at this time, I'm going to stop work. I'm not going to take the heads off any further. There's no point in it because the block is ruined. And I'm going to let the customer know that what's wrong with his engine and see what the options are going forward.